Leadership is not about a position. Leadership is not about influence. Leadership is the ability to touch people's lives and make them better. You don't have to be a genius to be a leader. You don't have to be a powerful person physically or otherwise to be a leader. You don't have to have a big position to be a leader. You need to have a good heart and the desire to make people's futures better.
Has it happened with you that as much as you would like to be kind to the world around you, and yet because of some reason you chose to be a little selfish?
There's nothing wrong with being selfish. Selfishness is a very misunderstood word. Of course, I'm selfish. We are all selfish. We are humans. Humans are wired for personal achievement. We all want to achieve. We all want to feel good about ourselves. We all want the best for ourselves. Self-ambition is a driving force that we need not give up. Commercial businesses, the longest lasting businesses are run by what we call steward leaders. Look at the Tata Group, 155 years of profitable growth, $385 billion market value.
There are so many examples that prove that in business also it's very important for an individual to serve the society. That's one of the fastest way to grow as well.
First of all, I don't believe that fastest way to grow is to give. Fastest way to accumulate wealth is by illegal means. Steward leadership believes that the more I give, the more I receive, the more I do for society, the more my business will succeed, but certainly not the fastest. Human brain's normal wiring is there's certainly not interdependence. We think opposite. The more I take, the more I will do. So you have to literally rewire your brain.
Rajeev, such a pleasure having you here. Finally, you are here. It took us some time to have you on our podcast, but I'm glad, honored, happy that you are here.
Well, the honor is all mine. Thank you.
Rajeev, you know that I've been following you, your work, the kind of good work that you are doing in the world. But before we drill into that space, would love to hear, when I saw your full name, Rajeev Peshawaria, I was quite intrigued. My grandparents hail from Pakistan. I'm just curious, is there any connection that we have?
Well, you guessed it right. The name Peshawaria comes from Peshawar, so my forefathers came from there. But that was many generations ago. Even my grandfather was born in India, so I can't claim to be from that part of the world. But yes, at some point the family came from there.
In fact, my dad was born in a small village in Pakistan called Bela.
Okay.
And during the partition of 1947, we shifted to India. I personally believe that roots play a very vital role. Anyhow. So, Rajiv, any of the memories that you still cherish from your childhood that you may want to share?
So you want to start with childhood memories? My gosh,
Absolutely.
So many. I grew up in the border town of Amritsar. So in many ways, Pakistan was close to us, was literally 30 miles away. And as a child, I remember those days, whenever guests came home, to take them to visit the border. And in those days, at the border, there would be at any given time, maybe 50 people, 100 people. And you could literally go over and put your foot on the Pakistan side, shake hands with the guards over there. And the things are kind of friendly. So I remember doing that a lot. Go there now, and there are more than 200,000 people visiting every day. And you can't even get near a mile of the gate. The actual border. So those were the days.
So, I personally believe that whatever we go through in our childhood has a huge impact on the way we start to look at the world, the way we make sense of the world. So what is that one episode of your life that you believe has shaped you more than people would imagine?
Well, it's not a very happy one, I'm afraid. But in my case, what happened was I was 29 years old, and I lost both my parents in a car accident. And
So sorry.
they were ordinary people. My father was a tax consultant, had his own practice. My mother was a housewife. And to my surprise, to ordinary people's death, almost the whole town showed up at the funeral. And I asked myself, man, this is not a celebrity death. This is not a politician's death. Why is the whole town here? Why is there a traffic jam? Why are people not able to enter the crematorium? There was that much of a crowd. So I started asking people around, and I saw one who I hadn't seen since I was a child. Hey, why did you come for my parents' funeral? And he said, your father had a profound impact on me. He was a very, very, very kind soul. He never said no to anybody who asked him for help. Oftentimes, I myself came to him and said, I need help, but I can't pay your fees. And he did my work for free. I asked another gentleman, I said, I haven't seen you for a long time. Why did you come? He says, oh my God, I have to tell you, I was in deep trouble once, and I came to your father to borrow some money, and your father just had enough money to pay your next semester fees because I was studying overseas at that time in his bank. And he took out that money and gave it to me, knowing full well that I will not return it in 20 days, even though I was promising to do so. Um, and I asked your father why. He says, your need is bigger than mine right now. Please return it because I have to pay my son's fees. He says, even knowing that I don't have a track record of keeping my word, he still gave me the money. And I came to salute this man. And like that, I asked several people, and they all said all those kinds of things, both about my mother and my father. And I realized, wow, I just learned today that leadership is not about a position. Leadership is not about influence. Leadership is the ability to touch people's lives and make them better. I woke up that day for the first time in my life. And I decided that day that I was going to spend the rest of my life waking up as many people as I could.
Mhm. Isn't that so beautiful that most of our lessons come from our parents? If I look
Yeah,
at the lesson that I have learned from my mother is how you could always be in gratitude. I have this written on my WhatsApp. Let me just read it for you. My mom moved on 3 years back. And that day when she moved on, I knew it that she has not left me. And that's when I wrote, lived with Shukrana in service of others and left this world with dignity. Not even a single day while she was struggling and she was suffering in some ways, shape, and form. Not even for a day she complained. Every day when I would go to her, every moment when I would be around her, she would say, Shukar hai, Vaheguru ka shukar hai, Vaheguru ka shukar hai, Vaheguru ka shukar hai. Everything is okay. And same is the case with my father. My father, he tells me always the importance of relationships. Now, one thing is you read about gratitude and relationships in books, but then when you have somebody who can operate from that space on day in and day out basis, it's a very different learning altogether. In that very moment, Rajeev, what shifted for you? How did your definition of kindness change in that moment? And how do you ensure that you wear that definition on day-to-day basis today as well?
For me, it was awakening in the sense that you don't have to be a genius to be a leader. You don't have to be a powerful person physically or otherwise to be a leader. You don't have to have a big position to be a leader. You need to have a good heart and the desire to make people's futures better. That's all you need. And you can do it. And that was my way. When you have the intentionality, you will see a path.
Yeah. And it's a lifelong journey. Has it happened with you that as much as you would like to be kind to the world around you, and yet because of some reason you chose to be a little selfish?
There's nothing wrong with being selfish.
Yeah.
You take the self out of people and you take the ego out of people, there is no achievement. Selfishness is a very misunderstood word. Of course, I'm selfish. We are all selfish. We are humans. But what's wrong with self-interest?
This is a distinction that people find it very difficult to understand and absorb.
You see, there is no such thing as being 100% other-focused. The big kindness and servant leadership, oh, it's all about serving other people. No. Humans are wired for personal achievement. We all want to achieve. We all want to feel good about ourselves. We all want the best for ourselves. There is no problem with that at all. Self-ambition is a driving force that we need not give up. The thing we have to do is, how do I want to achieve that fame and fortune for myself? And the key lies in this. The more you give, the more you get. The more you give, the more you receive. So I want to be famous. I want to be rich. I want to be well known. But can I get my fame and fortune by making the world a better place? Can I get more, receive more by giving more to the world? What do I give to the world in order to get what I want? If you have that mindset, then there is no conflict between self-interest and the service of humanity.
Wow.
You have to do both. It's a big pie out there. You don't need to divide it.
The more you give, the more you get.
Yes, the more you give,
that's quite a
Absolutely.
profound statement.
You look at famous people around you, look at Nelson Mandela, look at Mahatma Gandhi. Nobody is as famous as these names. Mahatma Gandhi died how many years ago? How many decades ago? But kids today know his name. He became who he was because he gave to the world a new way of thinking. Not that he was not ambitious about himself. He wanted to go down in history as a leader that changed the thinking in the world. But he was going to do that by giving to the world first. Nelson Mandela wanted to go down in history as being the leader that showed the world that it is possible to bring about a revolution without a drop of blood. He was very ambitious for himself, but he knew that I could only achieve my ambitions if I give to the world something that the world can credit me for. So I could go on. I mean, the more you give, the more you receive. Even in business, even in commercial businesses, the longest lasting businesses are run by what we call steward leaders. And steward leadership has a tenet called interdependence, which is the idea of the more you give, the more you get. You look at the Tata Group, 155 years of profitable growth, $385 billion market value, right? From day one, they have put society first, they've put environment first. Okay, before the first steel plant was built in Jamshedpur, Jamshedji Tata built hospitals, built schools, built community parks, playing fields, trees, avenues, before the plant was completed. Why? Not because he was a philanthropist, because he believed that if I want the best people to come and work for my steel plant, I need hospitals, I need schools. Why would families move here otherwise? So it's not either or, it's interconnected. You have to go for self-interest, but to achieve that self-interest, you have to give to the world. The other way to achieve self-interest is to steal and to kill and cut. That we are not talking about those people. We are talking about decency here.
I get it, what you're saying. In fact, coincidentally, my mom taught me this. The more you give, beta, the more you get. That's how the universe works. There are so many examples that prove that in business also, it's very important for an individual to serve the society. And that's one of the fastest way to grow as well. What do you think? What come in an individual's way that stop him or her to be on the giving side first before they start to consume?
So first of all, I don't believe that the fastest way to grow is to give. No. Steward leadership believes that the more I give, the more I receive, the more I do for society, the more my business will succeed, but certainly not the fastest.
Not the fastest.
The fastest way to accumulate wealth is by illegal means. Except that, though any of those tactics will not let your business last, because the average age of a business these days is 18 years. Okay. But the companies that live beyond 50 years, 100 years, they are successful because of this philosophy and the belief in the value of interdependence. So it's definitely not fastest, but it is the most longest lasting. Longevity is guaranteed. And people like Jamshedji Tata and many, many other leaders, the Ayalas in the Philippines, the Patagonias in the United States, the Faber-Castells in Germany, I could name you 500 examples. They knew right from the beginning this idea that if we take a long-term view, and if we take ownership for solving human problems, our business is going to thrive and going to thrive forever. Whereas the human brain's normal wiring of short-term thinking, the human brain's normal wiring is not to take ownership to today's problems. Human brain's normal wiring is there certainly not interdependence. We think opposite. The more I take, the more I will get. Not the more I give, I will get. The tenets of steward leadership are not default wiring of the brain. They are exactly the opposite. So you have to literally rewire your brain.
Yeah, it's not easy.
It's not easy, and it's not that difficult either. I think it's about, so the people who don't get it don't even try. Science tells us that you can rewire your brains. There's something called neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity. One of the challenges that I have observed is, and forget about the challenges that I've observed in people, I'm talking about my own self. The core that I have continued to operate from in my life, and I have to continue send a signal to my mind that, okay, there's enough and more. My default context is scarcity. I find it very difficult to share. I have to remind myself that, hey, God has been extremely kind to you, right? God has given you more than you would have expected from life and universe. Be more generous. I have to remind myself that start to live your life from a space of generosity and gratitude. The core itself is survival. Now, how can we work with those individuals where they have seen scarcity in their life during the childhood days? And now we are talking about abundance. We are talking about generosity. We are talking about kindness. We are talking about servant leadership.
It's all about practice.
Hmm.
Neuroplasticity is about deliberate practice. Okay, so I'll come back to that in a second. But first, let me talk to you about people who have faced scarcity, and therefore, how do you convince them about gratitude and this, that, and the other? Well, I have seen some people who have nothing as the happiest people in the world. Because I go work in the slums every now and then, and I see the smiles on the faces of those children in these community schools that we go and try to help out once in a while, and those smiles are to die for. I have seen aid workers, rehab workers, volunteers, very young people who have educated young men, boys and girls who can get great jobs and earn a lot of money at Google and Microsoft, but they choose to work in the nonprofit sector. Man, they party hard. They laugh. They have such fun. They have nothing in their bank accounts, right? So it's not like you come from a place of scarcity, therefore it is difficult. And yet I have seen people who are some of the richest people in the world are very, very unhappy. They need to spend more on themselves and to show the world how rich they are to feel happy. I feel sorry for them. So it's got nothing to do with the scarcity position that you come from. It is all about the mindset. At the end of the day, you have to look after your own happiness first. There are three keys to that great happiness, personal happiness, one of which you've already mentioned. I call them gratitude, acceptance, and forgiveness. If you can practice those three things and really practice them such that your brain is rewired, nobody in the world can make you unhappy. Nobody can make you feel sad or scarce or any such way. You control how you feel. You control your happiness and your feeling of well-being. And that makes you a better leader, a better spouse, a better father or mother, just a better human being. But you have to practice those three things, and there are deliberate exercises with which you can practice gratitude, acceptance, and forgiveness. Again, those three things are not the default of the brain. The brain is wired exactly for the opposite.
So gratitude, acceptance, and forgiveness.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So would love to double click on that and would love to understand that how can somebody who has gone through some kind of childhood traumas start to operate from a space of acceptance?
I get a lot of people coming through my seminars, and I ask them to do a simple exercise. Say, right now, I want you to switch off your phone, and for 3 minutes on a piece of paper, continue writing all the things that you're grateful for in life. And if you run out of things to write, keep thinking of what else can I add to it. And if you still run out of things to write and 3 minutes are still not up, think about the things you've already written and why are you grateful about that. Focus on your list, and no talking, no browsing, nothing. Search the internet, not the internet, right?
Wow.
That's what I tell them. For a lot of people, 3 minutes of silent writing or just 3 minutes of silence is very uncomfortable, but I get them to do it.
Yeah.
And then when they finish, I ask them, how are you feeling right now? And they're saying, we're feeling happy. We're feeling good. We're feeling thankful. Why are you feeling happy? Because we just thought about all the gifts that we already have in life. I said, let me show you the science behind it. Okay, your brain can only hold one emotion at a time. You just filled the bucket of your brain with gratitude, right? There is no place for sorrow or anger in your brain at this very moment because the bucket is full with gratitude. Next time you're stressed about anything, make this list mentally, and you will change the entire chemistry of your brain and your body. And now you ask yourself, how do I handle this problem? And you'll probably get a solution. This is a stress management technique. It's a happiness technique. Do it as many times as you want during the day or the week. And you regain control from a situation where you are losing control too in a stressful situation. So the more you practice that, now after practicing gratitude in this way for a month, 2 months, 3 months, your wiring changes to next time you have a problem and you're feeling the lack of something, your brain immediately goes, oh my God, instead of saying, oh my God, I wish I had this, why don't I have this, why is life unfair? Instead, your brain wiring now says, well, I'm so glad I have this, that, and it could have been a lot worse. Brain permanently rewires after practice. So that's the gratitude piece. On acceptance, when we have problems, obviously, along with the good things, there also come problems in life. The issue with problems, again, is the default wiring of the brain. The default wiring of the brain when we have a problem is blame, denial, and hope. Blame, denial, and hope. We blame it. I am in this trouble because of what you did to me. So I take my anger out on you. Momentarily, my brain feels equilibrium, but my problem doesn't go away, right? Denial is, oh, no, 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 my terrible boss is going to be transferred soon. This problem is going to go away. It's not happening.
Hmm.
Again, unless you take charge of the problem, it's not going to go away. And then hope is, I hope it goes away. I hope it will go away, right? So neither of those three things are strategies. You've got to accept ugliness of life in its full reality, and then only you can be resilient. Imagine throwing a ball from 40 floors down, from window 40 floors above, and now this football is falling down. The only way it's going to bounce back in the air is when it hits the ground. It cannot bounce back midair. And that's what accepting reality is all about. You have to accept reality in its full ugliness before you can be resilient. And again, it's a matter of practice. The third thing, like again, next time you are in a problem, ask, hear your own brain talk. Are you saying it's his problem or her problem and this problem? Or are you saying, no, 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 problem doesn't exist? Or are you hoping against hope that's going to go away? Or are you accepting reality? Finally, forgiveness, which is the hardest. You have to practice forgiveness. My way of trying to forgive people who have hurt me the most, it's the hardest thing to do, to forgive somebody who's hurt you a lot, especially somebody close to you. How do you overcome that feeling of betrayal and still forgive them? By asking yourself a couple of questions. And the main question is, if I had been in that situation where they found themselves and that same opportunity had presented itself to me, is it possible that I could have slipped at that time too and done the same thing to somebody else? And truly, if you ask yourself, most likely the answer will be yes. So would I forgive myself if I had done this once, if I had slipped once in a weak moment? Have I done things in my life that I have in a weak moment that I believe that I shouldn't have done? And have I forgiven myself for those? And so why can't I apply that on the other person and forgive them also? And once you master forgiveness, gratitude, acceptance, forgiveness in that order, my friend, you can never be unhappy in life. And happiness is a prerequisite for great leadership. Self-happiness is a prerequisite not only for great leadership, but leaving a positive legacy, because unhappy people don't make great leaders, don't make great spouses, don't make great parents.
I just love it. It's time to tap into the inner net rather than tapping into the internet. And I just loved it the way you presented the ugliness of life. Thank you for sharing that, because life at times would be unfair, or at least I would perceive it as if life has been unfair to me. And then during that time, tapping into, you said about gratitude, acceptance, and forgiveness. These are the 3 steps that will allow me to move towards happiness. Rajiv, you also mentioned about steward leadership.
Yeah.
When did you come across this term? When did you decide that you would like to make this as your life's work?
So, I've been in the world of leadership and personal development for the last more than 2 decades, right? But about 5 or so years ago, I started looking at the existential threats that the world is facing and getting very disillusioned with the fact that despite the fact that trillions of dollars are being spent on it, despite the fact that every country is passing new regulations and there's so many incentives to go green and to solve society's problems, why are we not making progress on things like climate change, socioeconomic inequality, and cyber vulnerability, just to name 3 existential threats? The whole world is talking about sustainability, ESG, all the time these days. Then why aren't we making progress? And I realized that we are trying to solve a leadership issue with money, incentives, and regulations. And that's why it's not working. We then said, let's do a little research to find out when businesses are getting sustainability right, when they are doing well by doing good. Why do they do it? How do they do it? So we studied the likes of Jamshedji Tata. We studied the likes of Patagonia and some many companies, big and small, that we now track, who are doing well by doing good, giving more to society in order to do well for the business. And we found out that they're doing it because of a very different kind of leadership orientation. They see themselves as stewards of planet Earth and humanity and believe strongly in 4 values, one of which we talked about already: interdependence. The more I give, which is the more I give, the more I get. Second is you have to take a long-term view. Third is you have to take ownership to solve human problems, make money by solving human problems. And the fourth is creative resilience, which is innovation, don't give up on finding innovative ways, profitable solutions to today's human problem. So those are the 4 values of steward leadership. And then steward leaders, based on those values, pursue a purpose that aims to create a collective better future for myself, for my shareholder, for my society, and for the environment, not just for me and my shareholder. So that's steward leadership. It is the genuine desire and persistence to create a collective better future for stakeholders, society, future generations, and the environment. And so once we got convinced that this is how companies that do well by doing good succeed, and they don't make less money than the others, we realized that the basics is in steward leadership. And my last book, Sustainable Sustainability, is all about steward leadership. And at our company, Stewardship Asia Center in Singapore, we now export this thinking to all over the world to get people to rise up to the challenge of 21st century business, which is to do well by doing good. And you can only do that if you see yourself as a steward.
Rajeev, you mentioned about existential threats that the world is facing. And you spoke about climate change, sustainability, and cyber vulnerability. Is that what you were referring to when you mentioned about existential threats, or is it something deeper than that?
Exactly that. The climate change creates a lot of existential threats on food, on water, you name it, extreme weather events. And if we don't check climate change, there will be no planet left in a few decades. Socioeconomic inequality is huge. Okay, more than half the world, which is 4 billion people, live on less than $5 a day. Okay, the top 1% of people in this world, richest people, 1% of the richest top people, own twice as much as the remaining 99% of us. And 22 rich men, own more wealth than all the women of Africa put together. So socioeconomic inequality is huge, and it's increasing. Because people are not seeing themselves as stewards. If you have power, the power of technology, the power of money, or the power of political office, you're using it for all the wrong reasons to maximize even more power rather than thinking like a steward. So yeah, these are existential challenges. If socioeconomic inequality continues to grow, there will be civil wars. There will be huge problems in society, already happening in some places. Right? You just notice what is happening in your neighboring country right now. Cyber vulnerability is all about the good and bad use of technology. Is AI eventually going to make life better for most of humanity, or is it going to make it worse? How the AI czars actually do it. Right now, technology companies do not have a good track record of thinking through larger societal implications. Whether it comes with data protection, whether it comes to misusing our information, whether it comes to misusing the power of search and other social media to brainwash people into believing things they shouldn't be believing. We don't have a good track record at this point. But I'm hoping that more people heed to the call of steward leadership and therefore use AI responsibly to make net better, not worse. So these are existential threats because all three of these can destroy planet Earth and humanity with it. Hence, our little entity called Stewardship Asia Center, we go out with clarion calls every day around the world, and we partner with business schools, universities, even the World Economic Forum to spread the message that you can make a lot of money, you can be very successful, but do so by solving human problems. Do so with steward leadership, please. And then nobody will grudge it.
And in your experience, Rajiv, when you go to those people, you spoke about Tata's as one of the examples in India, and there are so many other business houses in the country that we would not mention. They are making money. They are multi-billionaires. They are so happy investing and spending the money on what they would want to. And they don't have the legacy of 125, 30 years, the way what Tata brings to you. When you go to those business houses, when you go to those entrepreneurs, what kind of response do you get from those people? Do they even understand, or, pardon me for my language, do they even want to understand this? Of course they understand this.
No, they don't. They don't want to understand. And that's okay. That's okay. 80% of the people that will actually reject our messages of steward leadership.
I expected so.
But That's okay. That's good news because the remaining 20% will buy it. And the 80-20 rule says you need 20% of the people to save the world. Wilfredo Pareto and the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule is still alive and kicking. Nobody has debunked it till now. Okay. So if we can convince 2 out of 10 people to take up steward leadership, the future of humanity will be secure. We don't need all 100%. For the rest of the 80%, the regulators will make stiffer and stiffer laws such that they minimize the harm that those people create. Whereas the 20% will give us the innovation needed to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And in your experience, what is it that you have noticed? What are the unmet needs people who don't buy this concept? What are those unmet needs that they operate from? And what are those desires that people come from when they embrace steward leadership?
Again, it comes down to how secure do you feel about yourself? How
Within.
good you feel in your own skin, right? Unless you are feeling confident and secure on your own skin that I have a life worth living, you will always come to life from a point of view of scarcity. I don't have enough power. I don't have this. I will suffer if I don't have that. Then those desires never exceed because you're using money and power and somebody else's affection as markers for your happiness. And if those are the markers for your happiness, you will keep chasing all your life. Instead, if your marker of happiness is what I'm giving to the world, without compromising my own personal ambition, by the way, then you are in a different place altogether. Now you're comfortable in your skin. And that can only happen if people have done the inner engineering work of finding and honestly understanding their own values and purpose in life. 99% of the people don't know what their values in life are and purpose in life is. Only very few people do. And they then, no matter how hard life is, they never waver from those values because their purpose is their life. It's the journey that makes them happy. Whether they achieve it or not is even different, is not even important. But how many people can honestly say, my values are A, B, C, D, E, which I will never compromise no matter what happens. And based on those values, my purpose is to do whatever it is that. Very few people. Once you have that inner engineering work completed of values and purpose, I call it leadership energy. You evoke a new kind of energy in you, and leadership energy is honest clarity of values and purpose. Now I'm not dependent on money or wealth or power or somebody else's affection to feel good about myself. And only if I feel good about myself can I become a steward leader.
Rajeev, when you would have started this journey for yourself, what was that one most difficult challenge that you had to go through? And it took you some time to get over that.
Yeah. So, I used to work for in the banking industry and I made a lot of money. I used to be a trader. And, working on Wall Street with all the trappings of a good life. And I decided that I didn't want to do that anymore. And I wanted to wake up people and set up my own shop in doing what I do now. And the big dilemma was that I had a family and they were used to a certain lifestyle. And I did not feel good about taking a dip in my income because I'm having a spiritual awakening. Why should I deny my children and family what they are used to? And I had 2 kids in private school in New York and this, that, and the other, which is not cheap. So I had a lot of soul searching to do. Eventually, I told myself that if I can bring myself to a position where when I quit this job and do what I want to do, there will be no dip in earnings, then I'll do it. Otherwise, I won't do it. And it took me 10 years because I had to work for it. Eventually, towards the end of it, I said, let me write a book. And if the book becomes a bestseller, that means people are willing to listen. Then I will get the courage to quit my job and start a consulting practice. And that's exactly what I did. But it didn't happen overnight. It took me a long time to build towards that. Eventually, the book was published. I was a rookie author, never written before. It was published by one of the top publishers of the world and became a bestseller in several countries. That gave me the courage to say, okay, I think I can put as much on the table as I'm putting right now if I start my shop within a year or so. And that's kind of what happened.
If you can share one such example where you found a very difficult customer for yourself, and yet, because of some reason, the person said yes, what is the process that they go through?
As I said earlier, my job is to bring people information, knowledge, and experience in the best and the most motivating and inspirational possible way. Right? That's my job. Do I expect everybody to buy into it? No. As I said, only
No.
2 out of 10 will buy into it. And
Yeah.
that's enough. So I am interested in those 20, those two,
Hmm.
right? And there are plenty of those examples. That's one thing I will say. There are many, many such examples of people who have, transformed their lives and said,
Any example that stands out for you?
I will not give you any names,
Yeah.
but I can tell you that there are plenty of people who,
Hmm.
there was this guy who was a very successful wealth manager. All he knew how to do was investments. Again, a very successful investment banker. And he basically decided that he wanted life to be more meaningful, but only thing he knew was investing and wealth management. So he
Yeah.
set up a company that now invests in companies that have a positive impact on environment and society.
Wow.
And he shows the world with that look, I'm producing a positive return for my funds by doing that. So there is the proof. And he turned his company into a B Corp. He got a B Corp certification for the company, which is companies that do good. And here was a guy who was only focused on making money and having a good life. He said, I still want that, but I'm going to do it in a way that is net positive to the world. So like that, there were plenty of people who woke up. And they continue to wake up. They watch a video, they read a book, they read an article, they come to one of our training programs, and that gives us joy. Second point I'll make is now, at the sort of twilight years of my career, what I want to do is I don't want to work with people who are total non-believers. I want to help those people who want to help themselves. So we say, if somebody is all halfway there in their waking up, in their awakening, and is lost into the way forward, let's help them, because there are plenty of those that are seeking help. Complete cynics who are not getting it at all, sure, welcome to our seminars and programs. If you get it, great. If you don't, we'll try to help you and answer your questions as much as you can, but if you're still not convinced, then maybe you're right. Maybe your way is the right way. Go with blessings. Continue doing what you're doing. We're not here to transform every single person. No. Because if we transform one person, the multiplier effect is on hundreds of people. So if we can transform a handful, that's good enough already. And that too, we don't transform anybody. They transform themselves. We just become the catalyst.
Wow. And operating from that space is definitely very fulfilling, because on one hand, I don't need to take unnecessarily pressure that I have to transform someone. I'm just being here in service, and I'm just being, as you said, a conduit. I'm just being a messenger. I'm just being a catalyst.
And again, some of these things are destined. It's those who are meant to wake up will wake up, and those who are not will not. Because, they say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. But when the student is not ready, even the best teachers are useless. So that's how it is. So we can do as much as we can.
So Rajeev, do you primarily work with individuals, or do you work with business, if people would like to know more about the kind of work that you're involved in?
Both. So I had two companies. One is I spend most of my time now in Singapore at Stewardship Asia Center, which is a nonprofit think tank that helps businesses understand the idea of doing well by doing good. And within that, we have to wake up the individuals first before we can sort of hope that they will transform their business. I have another company which is US based, where we work more with, also work with corporations, but also a lot of work with individuals.
And that's more of consulting, coaching, based on the same principles.
Same principles. It's called Leadership Energy Consulting.
That's where you use the word leadership energy, where people can get more clarity on the values and the purpose.
Yes, Leadership Energy was the basis of my first book. So when I created the company, we called it Leadership Energy Consulting.
Got it. Rajeev, on one hand, you are creating something which is definitely relevant to the world, especially where the world is moving towards. When somebody is walking on that path, I've noticed that how life happens to you. Life continues to give you challenges on day-to-day basis. How do you manage those life's challenges while making sure that you continue to stay committed to the larger purpose that you have taken it on yourself? What kind of challenges do you face, and yet stay connected to the larger purpose?
There is nobody in the world that doesn't have challenges like the ones you talked about. Okay, life and death is a cycle that is a given. Death and taxes are unavoidable, right? So people who manage life's challenges better than those who don't are the ones who are clear about their values and goals. Because whenever you're faced with a challenge, you ask yourself, how big is this problem or this challenge in my larger scheme of things, of what I am here in the world for? Is it worth fretting and fighting about? If it is central to your purpose, then give it all you got. But if it's not important in the overall scheme of things and purpose, then don't worry about it. Move on. And as far as things that are inevitable, be grateful for the time you have with your loved ones, because one day it's going to end. We are all going to go one day. So what is so mortifying about death? Question is, are you death ready? And by asking the question, are you death ready? What I mean is, let's say, God forbid, you died tomorrow morning. I hope not, for sure. But God forbid, let's say I died tomorrow morning. Will I have any regrets tomorrow morning? I wish I had done this and that, etc., to make my life worth living. Has my life made any impact whatsoever in this world? Or will I die with regret that, no, I wish I had done something for the world? And if you feel like you've made a net contribution already, you're death ready, then every extra day and year that you live after making yourself death ready, meaning you've made a contribution to the world, is more opportunity to give more to the world. But people don't even ask such questions to themselves.
They're like difficult questions to ask, Rajeev.
There is no guarantee that you or I will wake up tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
So if we don't wake up, will your and my life have mattered? Of course, if you live for another 40 years, you will do another lot of 40 years of great work, etc.
I share with people that rather than preparing to live, one should prepare to die. One has been accumulating. If I knew that I'm preparing to die, I would be more generous in my life. What was that one thing that bothered you a lot, and it took you a little longer time to get and deal with that situation, a little longer than you would have expected, be it in your personal or professional life?
The biggest issue for me was to get out of banking and do something more meaningful.
But that was like 3 decades back.
I finally left in 2010.
Okay.
So not that long ago. Came with the trappings of a good life, and I had to really come to terms with the fact that I want to do something different and develop the courage. It took me a long time to develop that courage.
Okay.
I had to convince myself more and more about my own values and my purpose. And certainly a long time before that, when I lost my parents, as I told you the story, that's when the journey started. It took a long time before I could actually do what I needed to do.
If you were to go some 30 years back in your life, what's that one piece of advice would you offer to yourself?
Wake up earlier. I started asking those questions too late in life. I wish I had asked the same questions. Why am I here?
Why am I here?
What will happen as a result of me living 80 years on this planet? If I had asked myself those questions much earlier, I would have prepared myself accordingly. 30 years ago, I was like anybody else who just wanted material wealth and wanted, my idea of happiness was money and power and wealth and somebody else's affection. Because I never asked them. That's the default with which we grow up, particularly in developing countries. You go to school, work hard, do your homework, do your exams well, you'll get into a good college. You do well in college, you will get a good job. You do a good and honest work in your job, you will get promoted, and then you will get married, and then you will have children, and then you will have grandchildren, and one day you will die. You will probably hopefully leave a little nest egg for your children and your grandchildren. Is that what the purpose of life? But that's how we are programmed. But if you start thinking in terms of life worth rather than net worth, then you're asking a whole different set of questions. And I wish I had gotten to life worth much earlier in my life.
So does it mean that in order to find your life's worth, in order to find your life's work, these are the kind of questions that we should be asking? One, why am I here? What kind of impact would I want to create because of my presence on earth?
Absolutely. And what gives me happiness?
What gives me happiness?
What kind of work gives me joy? And by the way, if you discover the answers and chase life worth rather than net worth, your net worth needs to take care of themselves. Either you get very good at giving what you're giving to the world, that you get paid a lot of money doing it.
So thank you so much, Rajeev. It was an absolute joy having you here. And I look forward to interacting with you yet again on some other conversation and listen to your views on how, one step at a time, we can transform the world by operating from a space of genuine stewardship. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you very much. It was really nice talking to you.